Hey folks, it's Chris. Don't have a script for this or anything, but I had some things that I wanted to recommend to you that I saw related to comic books that I think you might be interested in. The first was an article by The Atlantic which investigates why Marvel Comics might be having such bad sales these days. Because if you didn't realize, their sales are definitely in a bit of a slump, especially when you consider that they have some of the most popular movies out there. A lot of their titles are only selling maybe 40 to 60,000. That's considered pretty good for them these days. That's about half of what it was maybe 10 years ago to be considered successful. So not great. It's a really interesting article because a lot of people were saying, oh, the problem with Marvel Comics is their push for diversity. But if we look at it, it really isn't that at all. In fact, a lot of the new comics with sort of more diverse characters are selling just fine comparatively. The real issue is definitely their business model, just how expensive they are, how they keep renumbering things and releasing multiple titles with similar names. It's very confusing to even an experienced comic book writer to know where you can jump in. It's hard to follow a story because things keep getting interrupted by crossovers or new numbering systems. So that's a really interesting article. There's the link. It's also in the description. Definitely worth a read. The second thing I wanted to mention real quick was I'm wearing this button, but you could probably better see it on this business card. There's a new nonprofit here in Seattle called C4C3. And it's called Comics for Community, Compassion, and Culture. I think it sounds like an awesome idea. It's all about getting comic books into schools and libraries. So that's their whole mission. Obviously a lot of focus on more educational comics, but just in general, there's all sorts of comics that can be studied. And I'm always for comics getting in front of new readers. I think it's a great idea for an organization. So right now that's very based in the Seattle community, so it might not be something relevant to yours. However, if this is successful, they do have plans to expand on a national level. And I think it just sounds great. You might want to look into that. But the main thing I wanted to talk about was a great comic book I read this week called Tetris by Box Brown. Box Brown had a great book about 3 years ago about the life of Andre the Giant. And his style is very cartoony and open. It makes for a very quick read. But this is nonfiction, and it's more than just telling the story of the Russian programmer who invented the game Tetris. You really get to know all of the different players at companies like Nintendo, Atari, various other game publishers throughout the 80s that all were trying to get a piece of that Tetris pie. Everybody knew that this game was something that was going to be huge, and everybody wanted the rights to it. And of course, the Soviet Union of the 80s was really not set up to negotiate video game rights. So there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of business, there's a lot of interesting characters that were involved in this story. And it analyzes all those people. It talks about some of the history of Nintendo itself, how it came to be. It talks about just the politics of the time. And specifically, it looks at what video games are, or even games. You know, it talks about them as both competition and art form, how it marries those two ideas. And it's just a really interesting read. I mean, it's about 250 pages, but I'll tell you, as soon as I started, I couldn't put it down. I read it all in one sitting. Really interesting book. Just thought I'd recommend that to you. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with some more bizarre comic book reviews. Bye!